This episode with Dan was a really special one. He has amazing energy. He runs an estate agent that does things completely differently. He gave away some strategies around social media, personal branding, how to build a team that we've never talked about on this podcast, nor have I really ever heard anybody talk about. So if you're an estate agent listening, definitely have your pen and paper out for this one, because there are some ideas in there that will genuinely, really positively affect your business if you go and implement them. Not only that, but he shared completely openly, vulnerably, honestly with me the entire time, particularly as we got toward the end of the podcast. So yeah, enjoy this one. I know I did. Energy's still really, really high from being around Dan. Without further ado, hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome back to another episode of Prop Sessions. Today, we've got Daniel Lewis on, the owner of Free Agent. Really, really excited to have Dan on today. He's got a very, very interesting story, interesting business model, very successful estate agent. Without further ado, Dan, thank you very much for your time and welcome.
That's a lovely introduction, wasn't it? Thank you very much. I was wondering what you're going to say about me then, but we'll go with that now. Thank you very much. That's very humbling to hear something of that stature said about me. So thank you very much. Appreciate it, and great to be on.
Absolutely. And we were just to dive right in. Obviously, we'll go into your business and all of that. We'll get into all of that because I think people find that very interesting. But what we were just talking about in terms of having frank conversations and just being able to talk directly to people, I think it feels like a very prominent topic right now. We were basically just talking about having, staff, having, friends and family as staff, and the kind of pros and cons to that. What's it been like with you and how you've grown your business? Because I think you have some family, have some, who help out in your business. What's that been like for you? Because I think a lot of people might be in that situation or are considering that, particularly with how things have developed over the last year. What's that bit been like for you, having family members to do work with, and what's that relationship been like?
Sure, yeah. I mean, if I sort of spin that around a little bit and go, it's sort of like the recruitment thing, isn't it? I guess in terms of how we've recruited over from going from zero to where we are. This month is our third year out. We're three this month basically. So we've never actually. I've got lots of friends who are recruitment advisors and love them to bits. But so far, we've never actually used a recruitment advisor. So we've grown through connections, through people that we know. A couple of people that actually work for us now as agents have bought through us, two of them, which I find quite interesting. So that's how we actually met one of our latest recruits, Rebecca. She actually bought a property through us and sort of persistently badgered me in a positive way over a period of time when we weren't ready, sort of when she first sort of said, this is great, so excited, I want to work for you. We weren't quite at the stage to take on then, but she, I think, as like any good estate agent, followed through. And yeah, she's doing wonderful things for us now. And a couple of people have actually sold through us as well. So that's how we've got sort of team members sort of built up through those sort of connections. As I think, before we were kicking off on this, my mother, bless her, is one of the more recent recruits as well, since lockdown. So she was working in retail basically before, on a high street shop which closed, and I was sort of at a phase then. It was sort of 2 years into the business, and we were sort of progressing, and we obviously stopped ourselves in that first lockdown. We took everything virtual online, as I think and a lot of people, we've always been quite a video-centric company, I refer to us as. So there wasn't a lot of changes that we made, but we didn't quite know what the future held at that stage. It was quite a difficult phase of coming back out of lockdown. I was actually helping out in my local Tesco. So I was doing night shifts in my local Tesco, so just wanted to go and help out somewhere, and I'm chatty, and I like to go and talk to people and all the rest of it. So I was actually helping out in lockdown one. We didn't, we lost half of our pipeline, in brief. So we didn't know what we were going to do and when the business was going to come back, how much of it was going to come back, all of those quite usual debates. Long and short of it was, yeah, mother got, made redundant as such. And we had, as we bounced back into that sort of spring 2020 now, we had some incredible months where I think we actually listed like 43 properties on the 1 month, and we're still, a baby, as I call it, as a business. So I was, wow, that's bedlam. And then I had that constant challenge of, right, do we need to take people on? Is that going to last forever, or is that just a one-off month, etc., etc.? The phone lines were going ballistic, call after call after call after call. So essentially, mother come in as the head receptionist, and that's kind of where her background is. And she's been wonderful in that sense. Going back to the frank conversations, I very much split it. So professionally, it's Julia. She'll probably watch this and laugh. But between those hours of work, and then when it's outside of that, it's mom. And we've entered it very pragmatic from both sides. It's working really well. Touch wood so far.
I love that. And one of the things that you said really stood out to me is somebody who wanted to join you, and they were following up for a good amount of time. It's unusual in my experience for people to be like really, really excited about joining a company like that. And that's, to me, the reason I find that interesting is because you have to have some kind of a culture or be doing something exciting or doing something different for people to really want to join you. What do you think it is that, creates that culture or that excitement around what you guys do?
Good question. Not been asked it yet, so I'm gonna on my tippy toes answer it as best as I can. We are purposefully different. From day zero, we set out to our business model, which I'm sure we'll get onto. I'll touch upon it now, but our business model was set up to be completely different to everyone else. There's risks that are obviously involved with that, which we were well aware from day zero. But the intention was to have a USP to be, right, you're all going that way, we're going to go this way, and that is a challenge in itself. From creating that on day zero to my job now is ultimately to look at everything and go, right, okay, that's where that's all going. We're going to sort of try and create our own path in its own way, whether that's through videos or through visual stuff, augmented reality, whatever it is. What's the next thing? I don't sleep because I'm trying to think of that, basically, and try and get that into place. I suppose all of the stuff that what we've implemented since day zero, and this is going back obviously 3 years now, and this particular person we're referring to, Rebecca, I think probably bought something of us probably a year and a half into our journey, maybe. Maybe just after a year. So we were still very, very, very small and young, but at that stage, estate agency was in a very different place 3 years ago. There's been a lot of change, particularly over the last year, 18 months, with the obvious COVID and the change of where people are working from, where that might be, etc., etc. And that's going to change moving forward. But we were kind of already doing a lot of the stuff. We were working, out of a co-working space. We moved offices. We didn't have an office on day zero. But then as we sort of got different members of the team, we had meetings at different places. And that, the fact that we built the business totally remotely, that we could pick it up on our phones and on our laptop and walk out of one venue, one office space into the next. I didn't realize it at the time, but enabled us to actually look at growing as well. Because had I fixed us to where we first, we actually, a friend and a contact in business have said, you can use my room in this office building, basically, in the old typical high street in our town. Good spot. And well, I did think, am I going to put photos in the window and all of that sort of stuff? Because that's what I've done for all of my career as an estate agent. But I made that very conscious decision to say no. The point I'm making is if we'd have secured, say, that room back of what we had day one, which we were considering, it would have what I call pigeonholed us, or we'd have only had that space, if that makes sense. So we might have had to sign a lease or a contract for a period of time, whereas actually on a growth perspective, then that would have been a struggle, because they were going, well, actually, I haven't got any space for people. But because we've been a bit more fluid and nimble in how we've sort of bounced off that, that's worked, I think, touch wood, in our favour to this point today, because I've always made it that we can pick up the office and move it. And the fact that we're not confined to one particular space allows that growth in a different way. So did I go off track there a little bit? But
no, that's actually really interesting though, because you were doing that just kind of before, like, you know, things hit where you may have been forced to do something like that, or at least being at a disadvantage. So you were actually setting yourself up, whether you knew it or not at the time, for this future growth, right?
No, it was the number one thing on my sort of agenda was office space, working. You know, do we go and get a high street office when we can afford to? You know, because again, it's a monetary thing. You know, we set up with zero. You know, with our phones and our laptop and I'll call it like our LinkedIn profiles. That was our network. That was it. You know, there was no budget. There was no option to go and get an office on day one. So as we sort of took those steps, it then crept in, well, should we get that space? Should we wait to get something else? It's still kind of a debate to today, as we're looking at it structurally and strategically as we look to take our next steps. I think it forever will be, but the bottom line is, I keep coming back to, right, we've got to stay nimble, we've got to stay agile, we've got to be, you know, able to appeal to all of our staff. So it comes back to, you know, yes, she was excited. So she liked the idea that we were meeting up in a local hotel, you know, once a week or whatever. And she quite liked that idea that we then were going to a co-working space, you know, once every couple of weeks for our bigger team meeting. And it made it an exciting thing for her in particular, just using that one example, to go to a meeting. And that's something I've always tried to create. We have our sort of morning check-ins now, but again, I've literally changed the structure again this morning, and that's what I think is quite important, to be able to move scope and change, you know, in an instant. And that's what I keep back. Whatever we do, our decision is affected by that agility to scope and change as times and desires and people's wants change, basically. And all I do now is I ask the team, say, guys, what do you think? What do you want? It's not about me, you know, it's about them and what they want to do. So, and then we just put the things in place to best suit the team of what we've got around us today, basically.
And do you know, it's funny, like, I know people who run like tech companies or startups and things like that, terms of using like agile, you know, working co-working spaces, the way you're structuring your meetings, that is how like really fun, you know, growth companies work, essentially, right? That's the way you've structured this. And that, you know, I didn't realize that before we jumped on. Obviously, I know your business model, which we'll get into, is completely different, but also the way that you run the whole company is different. And I guess that does kind of answer my question before of like, what does attract people who are really excited to work there? Because it's a different type of person who would be excited about that potentially, because of the way you run it. One thing that I thought was what really caught my attention was when you said about, you know, you started with zero and your LinkedIn profiles, right? They were your networks. Amanda O'Brien, if you know, she runs content for estate agents. She was speaking at an event recently, and they basically found out that the average employee of an estate agent has, I think it's around 1,050 friends on Facebook. And there is so much more power in content being posted from those personal profiles than the company profile. Because if you're somebody looking to sell a house and you know that person, and it's coming from them rather than a business, more of a salesy kind of thing in the back of their mind, that carries so much more power. It's really interesting to what you said about starting with your, you know, your LinkedIn profiles, which is kind of along the same lines. Can you, tell me a bit more about that?
No, you're bringing it out of me. Thank you. Yeah, it's so we're quite passionate about what I call personal branding. There's a lot of people. I'm going to do a quick shout out to Gail Partridge, who's part of Agents Mutual. Do you know her by any chance? Or?
I It rings a bell. I don't know her personally, but her name rings a bell.
I'll
Yeah.
intro you. We'll sort it out. But
Amazing.
I did a training course with her going back some years now when I was in my employed days through my old agency, basically. And Gail, to this day, as you can tell, inspired me, no end. Yeah, the point is she taught me about personal brand, okay? And over my career, I've only worked for three stroke four agencies. So when I left college, I worked for a solicitor's firm which had an estate agency. That's what I got into. I then went to a regional firm. I then had a little spell with a London firm, actually, because I wanted to go do that thing.
Big up.
Mentioning no names, yeah, big global brand. But what I learned over those three experiences was it was a different name above the door. I put that very mildly, but the system, a lot of the actual core of what was done, the selling process, was the same ultimately. So and Gail then sort of taught me. She was the first person who sort of opened my mind to go, that brands create obviously traction and people like brands, and I love brands. I'm absolutely passionate about that. I get that, but it's also about the person. And as I then went through my career before Free Agent, I actually found that people didn't even know who I worked for towards the end of it, because I was pushing my own personal social media profiles consciously at the time, through what I'd learned, through Facebook, through Twitter, through Instagram, through whatever was available at the time, to build my own personal brand. So I would turn up at places and go, oh, it's Dan, that's it. Who do you work for? Oh, right, okay. It was kind of a secondary conversation or consideration by the said client. And that's when I went, oh, okay, that's really interesting. And that's what I've taken that into when it was just me and my partner when we set up Free Agent, as I say, ground zero, with LinkedIn, a bit more exuberant, Facebook profile, Twitter, and our local network. That's what we took. And yeah, I did do everything purposefully through my personal profiles when we set up, because of those reasons, actually, that I was the person that was known, and hopefully people might like me. They might, who knows? But they know Dan, and that's when I sort of come up with the thing of I changed my names as well. Dan sells houses, because that's kind of as I walk down the street, I thought, oh, Dan sells houses. That's kind of the thing. Bit cheesy, bit corny, but it kind of worked. Yeah. So I actually changed my name on all my profiles to Dan sells houses, and then it's kind of been that go-to person. I want to sell. Oh, Dan sells houses, and use that basically to get us out the ground through social. Through pushing our content through there, which I still do. So my social strategy now to this day runs that we've got our company social media. I've then got my personal profile, which on my little list of things to do today is, put some out on my personal stuff that was on the company profile the other day. And then our agents, what we're trying to do as best as possible is build their personal brands as well. Because as that's really important to me. So yes, they have the company backing and support of what we provide as a company, which is forever tinkering and trying to improve. They get my support as well. Plus then in the middle of that, they are their own people. And that's important to empower that and embrace that. They've got their own contacts, they've got their own styles. And that's something that we've really tried to work on and are continually working on to push their personal brands. So yeah, does that answer that one for you, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really, really interesting though, because I think, the topic of personal branding, it's more of a conversation nowadays. And in typical Dan fashion, you're a couple steps ahead of the game, right? Where you've got your team actually building that themselves. What's that process been like, having, you obviously, I'm assuming, you've got your personal brand, your profile going for some period of time successfully, then going to say, okay, cool, let's get you guys involved in this as well. Practically, how has that looked in terms of them going out and building their own presence?
Yeah, another great question. It's a work in progress, like with all things. And that's because you can have people are different, okay? And that's good, that's brilliant. So I know, and this is something from when I was 17 and started out in a estate agency, not everyone is going to love me. Although I absolutely do cry myself to sleep and have sleepless nights over that, I've learned over the years that that's just how it is. You know, I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Fine, you know, I'll go and concentrate on the people that I am. And that's something I've learned. And that's what I've had to try and now try and pass that on our team. You know, if they lose a listing and if it, you know, they get really heartbroken over it, and that's good because they're passionate over it. But sometimes you could have every trick in the book, every media source, every you know, throw the kitchen sink at it. But sometimes you might just not gel with somebody, and that happens to me still to this day. Nothing wrong with that at all. I use very much 80-20, go and work on those ones that do want to work with you, and that's fine. You know, no problem at all. You can only do what you can do. Coming back to the personal brand thing, if I look at our current team at the moment, just quickly, as I say, people are different. So we've got Linda, who basically, she won't mind me saying this, is a lady of a certain age, shall we say. So she plays a lot of tennis, okay? So our strategy with her is quite different to Rebecca, who's younger, basically. So Linda, you know, goes off and networks with everyone in her local patch in her village because she's playing tennis with them all around. So we purposefully drive that basically and empower that to the point that I've taken up trying to play tennis.
Love it.
I'm actually going to play tennis with Linda with her club because it's now all opening back up and all the rest of it tomorrow, Saturday. So then I'll meet the people, etc. So she's got a network through that. So although it's not driving it wholly through social media with Linda, for example, she's still got this very good network of what she works on a daily, weekly basis through the groups of people that she knows in her local patch. And that's what we've really gone, okay, that's cool. That works. You know, we've sold for several of her tennis players who she's on a team with, or she's beat or played against or lost against or whatever. And that's still in my head. That's her personal brand and that's her network. And we've just gone, that's cool. That's what you enjoy. Go and do that. And just have in the back of your mind or you know, on your racket, freeagent247.com. So every time you hit it, maybe. Like that, yeah.
I can see it across the racket. The branding of it. That would be pretty
literally epic. Just emailed somebody saying, can you print logos on tennis balls? Literally just before this meeting, ? We'll see.
I can definitely see the bird on there.
Yeah,
I could totally see that on the tennis balls.
We'll see. I'll let you know next time we catch up.
I feel like this is basically turned into a masterclass. Like, you realize how valuable this actually is in terms of what you're doing, because essentially, like, this is what, you know, other countries, you look at America, you look at Australia, that they're more kind of at this pace. But the way you've done, obviously there are American companies who are now in the UK, you know, with varying degrees of success. But the way I love the way you've done this, of looking at a personal brand, not just because most people think of personal brand, social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And that's it. But actually, it's personal brand is wherever it's you, right? So it can be you in tennis, it can be you on the toilet, right? It's you're there 100% of the time. So and I also love how you look at it individually per team member. So the different differences they have. So how Linda, you know, her strengths are more around her physical network, playing tennis and stuff like that. What's it like for other team members?
But yeah, taking that a step further. So I'll use Rebecca as the young. So we've built up. So she's got her own platforms through social media. You know, Free Agent 247 Rebecca, and she drives that through. So as I say, we've got that company social media, my social media. That sort of does that as a support network that is a constant. And then in the middle of that, we're building up what I call these stepping stones. And Rebecca is an absolute prime example of, personal brand, social media, you know, where my head goes, absolutely, in the first instance. And so she's got her own platforms. We've been quite selective about it, good time, etc. And you have to put the effort in. I say, you know, from day one, bless her, she wanted to do everything and go, I want to be this and do that and do that. Brilliant. Now, when you get busy or busier, that's hard, believe me. So let's pick, 2 platforms or 1 platform. In particular, one comes to head at the mind is the Instagram platform of hers that she's sort of building up. And she's able to network with people in her local community through that channel. So she can, follow the local kitchen place in her patch, in her town, follow the local handyman, and shout out to them on Instagram stories, etc., etc. So that's a little strategy of what works for her. And that's building sort of up in the middle, whilst we've still got these wheels of support going round to like that keep it a constant with the properties and the videos of what we do going out there. So she doesn't have to think about that. But then she can still take it on her own personal brand and build it up that way, by networking with the local places, basically. Knowing those, which has been a little bit hard over the last year, more so, but still not impossible. Still been plenty of creativeness going on out there by local places in terms of their diversification, which we obviously have to support it, show you support it. And that's our sort of funnel channel there with her. I just, for one last example, is Christine is then a sort of different to those two. So she's sort of come into the business from totally out of area, which is quite interesting again from my perspective and our perspective. So it again sort of like a ground zero approach of right, let's integrate you, network you with the local community in your patch. Let's make sure your face and your brand is getting known. So just some very simple things like, let's get you into a property video and say, hi, it's Christine here from Free Agent 24/7. Welcome to Worcester. Here's such and such. And so we're working on those sort of things as well. And again, teaming up with, local places that have popped up or opening up through that sort of channel to help her and support her in that way. And that's an ongoing process as well. These things have to be. So, yeah.
Would you say social media is your biggest stream of new business?
Yes and no. For me, social speeds up word of mouth. Okay, if I try and explain that how I see it. So word of mouth and referrals for us is probably still the lifeblood of what we've done. So from coming out the ground to selling for a younger person who's perhaps seen us on social media in the first place, they'll then go and say, Mom, Dad, you want to see these guys? Look at what they're doing here, etc. So it's still word of mouth, but it's enhanced and escalated and sped up through social. Mm-hmm. So you can tell I'm very aware, or trying to be very aware, that I know it's word of mouth still is actually what's driving that, but how people communicate is changed and changing, and will forever change. So hence the social thing, I think, drives that word of mouth, that somebody can go tag somebody in on a post and go, these guys were great. That's still kind of word of mouth, isn't it? And if you know where I'm coming from, but it's just on a different platform. So might be a load of nonsense, but
no, so social media is word of mouth, right? Because it's people talking, right? It's the media is social. Do you guys do much on paid social media, or is it all organic?
That is where can I hide in this room on this podcast? I don't know if I should hide or not, actually. No is the answer. I've never done anything paid, ever. And that we've started this conversation. My sister is in social media management, paid PR, all the rest of it. So I've got the obvious person to do. But no, since day zero, we have not spent a penny on paid advertising. So yeah, it's all been organic, rightly or wrongly. I know there'll be people screaming at me for this, and I know there is. just bear with me. I know. I've taken the approach that I like that organic approach. I think the results you get from that are more genuine, they're more specific, they're better quality, etc. So I've put that extra legwork and effort in myself ultimately to build that and help our agents, as I say, do that. Hopefully that's shown. And But that's not to say I won't be looking at that. And it's again, it's a constant on the agenda, basically. So, but again, from, as I say, zero budget, zero start, it wasn't an option on day zero. So I went, right, I'm going to go through my network, through my organic nature, see where that gets us, quite literally. And then we'll take a view as that goes, you know, despite being screamed at by somebody every week to say, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this. I get that. I think it will come and we will trial things out, etc., etc. But our approach has been okay so far. But to grow and go to the next level and in steps, that's when we've tried to get to the threshold we're at now to then be able to look at it more cost-wise, and all the rest of it basically that goes with that.
And I think, you know, it kind of ties in with how you've approached the whole business. Like, you've done it the way in which you feel is best, which oftentimes is against what most people are saying, right?
You know, never thought of it that way.
You know what I mean? Because I think I really liked your approach and how you kind of, you know, essentially was saying word of mouth essentially is social media. Because the way I view, obviously, what Prop Media do is mostly paid social media, right? So I'm inherently biased, but actually, you know, it's not a quick fix for anybody. Yes, can you 5x things very quickly? Yes, because you've got paid budget behind it, but it's not a solution to if there isn't a good brand, if there isn't already good social media. So you actually need the foundation first. You need really good social media, because if suddenly you've got, let's just say, 5,000 people a month seeing you through social media, if you then increase that to 50,000 a month through paid, well, if the bedrock isn't good, if this social media isn't good when they're coming back, then it's not really, sure, you'll get some benefit, but it's not really going to hold its same weight. But by having that foundation, the best companies we've worked with where we've got the insane results, they've all got really good social media. They're using, you know, more modern tools, the way they do it. They've got a great brand. And really all it is just an amplification of what you're already doing. It can't fix, you know, if you've got a not great online presence.
It's it's a longer term approach. And I think something you've just said to me, which again, consciously, subconsciously, it's been the challenge of what we've had since we set out, as I say, and as we're trying to grow and still provide service, because that's my number one thing to one, our team, and one and two in coalition, team and customers, basically. So if we went and got 50 new listings tomorrow, could we cope with that? Question mark. Okay. Could we cope with it to the level of what I demand? Question mark. Yep. You know, so it's all quite sort of stage strategic to make sure, again, I'll come back to the systems and procedures word again. And as you use that, the bedrock, I think, and if the bedrock in the core is not right, you can do all of this, which is great and lovely and wonderful. But then that isn't working, which means you might go and get them or get them here and bring them in and do something with them. But then actually they might fall off the wheel elsewhere down the line. And I've always been a very, very, I'm very passionate, about saying, look after what you've got. Mm-hmm. Okay. Before then you go for more. So if you look after what you've got, comes back to that word of mouth thing again. Your one customer, if they're absolutely bowled over by the service, etc., they will go and tell one other person. It's just common denominator, and so on and so forth. And that's very much the approach we've taken from day zero with the growth of it to where we are. It will come. It's there in plans, but as I think you've hit the nail on, it's not something that I would flick a switch and expect, wow, we got 10 leads overnight. I think you've got to look at it more longer term and have that very strategic approach with it when you do something. So again, getting to a place where we're stable and financially able, and all of those sort of very grounded, ground basic stuff that we can look at a period of time for 12 months plus, isn't it? But as far as I'm concerned, that we know we're going to do that whilst we're doing that, and this is our strategy over that period of time. that's when you're going to get the best results, isn't it? I feel so.
Yeah, totally. Like I remember when we do stuff for us. Take ourselves as an example. When we've used paid, and we've very quickly got a lot of new clients, which is a fantastic. But like you say, can the team maintain that level of service? So it's been a thing for us of finding that right balance between growth and service. And finally, now we're at a point where the team are in place, where the way I've viewed it is, do we not only have the team in place, but do we also have spare capacity? Meaning, like, can they, if we got an extra 20 clients this month, could we take that? If the answer is not yes, then we won't do it yet. So it's been a lot of time of getting those systems in place, being a bit patient with it, because we've been going for about the same time as you.
Yeah.
And once you're there, and if you do all of those things right, then now we're experiencing the fruits of that through just amplifying everything. But yeah, to your point, I really like the approach you take, because it's easy. It can, this is just human nature. It can be easy to be impatient as well, to just say, well, we put this budget behind it, we'll get X out of it. Fantastic. But like you said, service first, right? All right, I think we've been going for a little while. Let's talk about your business model, because this is really, really exciting to me. I remember when we first connected, probably a couple of years ago now, never seen anything like it. And it's been amazing to watch you grow through social, mainly, is how I've seen you guys grow. You can see that if you're watching, this will be on YouTube. You can see the video behind on Dan's screen. They're very, very video centric as well. Tell us about your business model, because you're not a typical estate agent.
Okay, so yeah, as if for anyone's been watching, I've touched upon this, but yeah, we going back just briefly, in my history, as I say, 17, left college, went into a high street, set up a high street firm agency, basically office based, fantastic. Was there 3-4 years. Went to a regional firm and was there 7-8 years. Many happy years and great experiences. Still speak to all those guys and gals on a weekly basis. But always had that desire to go out and do something on my own. Ultimately, whether it be through one of those companies and go and set up an office or something else, wasn't quite sure. But that was, if I'm doing a estate agency, I kind of want my own thing of some sort at some stage. And with the change and shift of estate agency, which will forever continue, that's just change. The only thing in life that's constant is change, isn't it? But as I watched this over my 10 years or so, as I say, and had that brief spell in London as well, and what I sort of took away from all of that was, right, okay, if I do this, I want a USP, is what I come back to, something that is different to all of these offerings, which are all, I love all very dearly. There's, nothing wrong, as I say, that's fine. But I wanted something that would be a USP, as I call it. Our videos, everyone can go and do videos. Ultimately, that's fine, isn't it? That's not a USP as far as I was concerned. So yes, I was going to try and build it around that and use that, absolutely. But in terms of the charging side of things, this is where we sort of went, right, let's, everyone's charging, there's that constant debate over what do we charge, how much do we charge, what's my value, all of that sort of stuff, which, absolutely fine. Get it, understand it. But I kind of wanted to create a level playing field as much as possible. So we sort of, in a nutshell, flipped the model on its head. So our vendors pay nothing to sell their property. We provide all of the marketing, so it's our risk, our gamble. So we put on professional photography, videography, floor plans, Matterports, social, digital, whether through myself at the start or then as I'm trying to grow, different people, etc. But we provide all of that, all of the viewings, no hidden costs, etc., which gave us a USP and was something that hadn't been quite done before. Risk involved with that. And basically the purchasers pay a percentage on top of what price we agree at, and that goes through and gets paid through the solicitors and only on completion. So sort of little flip back round, which gave us the USP of what I really wanted in the middle of that to go to market with. Because, you know, we were going in, yeah, just look at our local patch, we were going up against local, national, regional brands that have been there for years and years and years with massive budgets. So I knew I had to have something that would set me apart or us apart from them, you know, on the kitchen table, so to speak, or on the lounge sofa. Right, okay, these guys are totally different. They're not just, you know, charging a percentage or a fee or whatever. It is totally opposite to those. One, to make us stand out, and two, to give us a chance, basically. And did we know it would work? No, is the honest answer. That's the question I get asked all the time. Let's say from high street agency for 10 years. No, we didn't. That was the risk. But for you know, I think I'd seen enough over my time to understand that if a buyer wants to buy a house and a seller wants to sell a house, it's our job to get that best price possible. And ultimately, if you want to make that deal happen from both parties, and as me, Mr. Estate Agent, Mrs. Estate Agent in the middle, that makes that happen, you will make it happen, basically. And if they don't want to do it, then that's fine. You know, over my years, I've got millions of examples of, you know, people, when you find that buyer who wants to buy a property, they want to buy that property. They don't want to buy the house next door because the house next door is different. They want that property. So it's playing on emotion, yes. It's using the bespokeness of every property. And yeah, does that answer it as good as possible for now?
Yeah, totally. And, you know, I'm sure, like, you know, loads of questions could come up about it because it's so exciting and different. I guess, like, one for me is, when you do attend a valuation, you do attend a market appraisal, what is that conversation like, and is there like a typical reaction from a vendor when you explain how your service works?
It's every reaction can be different to the next. So, you know, again, local patch wise, hey, we're not known to everyone in all places, so we can go to somewhere and they might not know exactly. You know, we still get messages come through on a daily basis saying, how much do you charge to sell a house? Right. Question mark. You know, I still get friends, you know, acquaintances I've known for years. Dan, you know, thinking of selling my house, can you let me know your costs? Question mark. So that message hasn't drilled home, and it may never. You know, that's multi-millions and billions of pounds of educational budget, isn't it? To educate everyone that that's how we do it, and that's the charge, i.e. zero. But what it does is it creates that first lead mechanism. So anyone who's interested in it will go, hang on a minute, how does it work, etc. Give them a call, or let's get in touch with them. Great, as far as I'm concerned, because that then allows us that opportunity to pick up the phone, engage with them on whatever platform it may be, and start that conversation from there. I have to say, I find it unimportant, or less important than I thought it would be over the years gone by. So it makes a conversation quite easy in terms of, you know, you do all of that, great, you know, you do all of giving me all of that, what are you going to charge me? You know, that's what I got to when I was in my previous years. Yeah, every time, wow, such and such is going to do it first. Yeah, but okay, back up your value and know your worth. 100%. I get that. I understand that. But it makes that conversation a non-conversation. Well, we do all of that, and that's it. The conversation is slightly different because they have questions to ask about the model and how that affects things. So it's just a slightly different conversation at the end of that. Well, hang on a minute. So you're going to give me all that, and you know, can you assure me that we pay nothing? Absolutely. Okay, well, how is the buyer going to react to that? That's a natural thing. As we've gone from 0 years to 3 years, we've obviously got, well, we have got hundreds of case studies of situations that we can then reel off to this client, etc., and support that. But as I've just touched upon, I found it personally less of a deciding factor for our vendors, actually. I think it makes a conversation a non-conversation. It makes that thing about well, he's charged me that, or he's going to charge me this. It's actually, I like it because it's so transparent. That's what we charge everyone, and that is what the buyer pays. It's exactly the same on every single property. So there's no grey areas. There's no favoritism. There's no favours, because I've known somebody for 20 years and my cat used to crawl across his land, and that means he should have a deal with us or whatever. This is how it is, full stop, finito. Nobody pays more, nobody pays less, very clean. And on my personal conscience, I found that one of the most refreshing things as an actual agent, to go, that's what it is. I'll come back to that. I'll come back to the point I was making, which is, but over the years gone by, I think it's less of a deciding factor for vendors, particularly for us, because of the service element, actually, which I sweat constantly. My stress is, I want to provide the best service we can and the best marketing we can to help sell that property. That's all we're here to do at the end of the day, and find that buyer and attract them in, and everyone be happy and everyone move on. That's what I want to do every single time. That's my desire. The costing is yes, on a commercial basis, has to come from somewhere, but actually you're making the parties happy. That's my key focus. And I think over the years gone by, and hopefully moving forward, that's what people see more so. Certainly when I go out to somebody, yes, it's brought into conversation, but they'll through that word of mouth or through that recommendation, they'll go, wow, you dealt with or you sold such and such property. The video you did on their property was great. Can you do something like that for us? Or you were available 24/7. I was on the phone to you at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, Dan. A quick conversation, but that stood out to them or whatever over the freeness. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, and we didn't know how that would go day zero, or who that would attract, the client that might attract, etc., etc. Because ultimately our business is the key target person is the person or the property that, in a nice way, every estate agent has said, here's all of my buyers, as I've done over the years. You'll have no problem selling this house, not a problem at all. It's going to sell. That's our key property, and that's sort of what we've gone on to attract on the whole, is those very saleable properties that have no problem selling. And that's what we set out to do, basically.
Got it. And when you're on the buyer side, right? Because that's, I'm surprised actually how I would have thought from a vendor's reaction, they would have been more shocked, or they would have been more just surprised, because they've probably never come across it before. I think that's softened over the year. I think with the shift and the change in everything in the world, I think that's had an effect. So it had maybe COVID not happened, maybe that conversation would still be a bit more evident, maybe when we go into, but then, we are going into different areas, dotting around, trying to spread our wings a little bit. I was in neighbouring county last Saturday and I'm trialling these things out. We have gone and sold in neighbouring counties. And I sort of got to that stage. I didn't know these customers from Adam, excuse the expression. So it was very much I'm going to go and value your house and then talk to you about free agent. Great. So they didn't, they just inquired about one of our properties, basically. But I specifically wanted to go because I knew it was an opportunity to sort of just sense a reaction, basically. And I went through everything and okay, fine. That was it. Okay. So cool. When are you going to get your mortgage advisor to give me a call? No questions asked. So do you want to go back to that at all? So they'll have to kind of like, is that all okay? Understand? Yeah, that's fine. No problem. We get it, Dan. That's fine. You shut up, Dan. Is what happened. Okay, that's fine. Off we go. So yeah, but for the next person, it's like anything in this world, isn't it? The next person I probably speak to after this conversation is going to totally grill me about it, left, right, and centre, and then I might never have it again for another month or so. It's yeah. So that's the fun of estate agency, isn't it? Interesting as well in terms of like I didn't know about like the selectiveness of properties as well and how that plays into it and the emotion that you're able to use for buyers. I think that's really, really smart how you've angled the business in that way. Do you have, well, I'm sure you have a vision for your business, right? Where you want it to be in X number of time, however you like to look forward. What does that look like for you, like free agent in say 3 years time?
Oh, there's killer questions, aren't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got. I am very ambitious for what it's worth, but very pragmatic at the same time. A wise man once told me, you know, if you make a decision today, you're often 6 months away from implementing it. So I am forever trying to plan out the future. That's how I've been since I left college. So I spend time weekly and monthly, literally going, right, where do I want, you know, how's my year look? That's my year, you know, that's my year look on my desk, so I can see it, so I know what I'm doing when and how that year looks for 2021. And then working on 2022, 2023, you know, what I'm going to be, this is how old I'm going to be. You know, this in 5 years time, this is how old, well, what do I want to achieve? How many people do I want to help? You know, all the rest of it. The vision with Free Agent is, you know, we're now 3 years old. We've sort of changed the market, whatever you want to call it. You know, done our little thing in our patch, and we're still trying to cement that and drill that home and educate that. That's again, look after what you've got, Eb. So I say that's our core focus. Is still right. We've built up a brand in a nice way, which I'm very grateful and very honoured. You know, that's my childhood dream to do that. So I want to continue that. Never let go of that. You know, in our local town, put the flag, you know, boom, and keep it there. There it is, flying like that. That's it, on my stick. But obviously look into going into what we call the 3 counties, the neighbouring counties. That's certainly the 3-year vision, but certainly, you know, we're focused on our county still for the time being, but with that idea of finding people, if anyone watches this who's interested, you know, in Herefordshire or Gloucestershire.
Put it out there.
Just putting it out there. You know, we that's where our 3-year vision is, and then again from there we'd like to go and pick it up, sort of moving towards London. That way
we'll welcome you with open arms.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in London? But no, yeah, that's our sort of my sort of travel of business plan is 3 counties, ideally 3 years. And then moving it down sort of that way from where we are at the moment based. Yeah, with the ultimate goal of being UK wide, or certainly England, because the system's different in Scotland, isn't it? That's another day. But certainly, you know, across England, that will be the dream and the vision. Absolutely. So, yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing those boards littered around your counties in London when you come down to our side. I'd love to wrap up. We would have been going for 50 minutes. The time just flies. With some fun questions for you. Just a couple of little ones for you. So,
cool.
First one I got for you is: in a estate agency, what is one of your biggest pet peeves that you see?
Buyers pulling out of a property is the one thing that comes to my head. Mm-hmm. For no material reason. Mm-hmm. A change of heart. There we go.
You must have like an idea on what those reasons are. What do you think? What do you think some of those reasons are when buyers?
It's in-house relationships. Their end. Perhaps they got caught up in the heat of things, etc., with that emotion thing. I say that, and it's because they really stand out to me, again, because of our business model is very focused around that buyer, etc. So we don't have many, but when they do, they hurt, as they do with anyone, but they stand out to me. So I find it quite interesting as to, like, somebody change their mind in the 23rd hour there, pulling out of it. Well, hang on a minute, your emotions were still the same as something's changed, isn't it? Or something else has come that they want to go and try and taste, etc., etc. but our model doesn't protect that. Is my point. We haven't solved that issue. The classic next one is the viewer that doesn't turn up at a booked appointment. Is something else that stands out. Again, we don't have many of these things, and this is why I think they particularly stand out to me. On the whole, I think the clientele and the people that we deal with, as most agents do, are on the whole superb. But you will always get that minority that stand out in your brain. There we go.
We salute them. All right, next one I got for you is, when you look back at your life so far, what is one of your favorite failures, put failures in inverted commas, that later led to a success?
Oh, loads of those every day. I'm trying to find one key one for me. As I say, literally, I think failing is brilliant. As I think you touched it, that's where you are with that, there, isn't it? If you never fail, you never tried, have you? Full stop. I'm trying to think many examples. I can't think of one off the top of my head right now, but
that's right. I know what it's like when you're put on the spot. You're like, I know there are dozens, but I can't think of them right now. We can always circle back to it. That's all good. So the next one I got for you is a deeper one. So we're going to fast forward to your last day with us on the planet. So you've set out, free agent is nationwide. You've achieved all your goals in terms of business. You've got your loving family around you, all of your friends. It's your last day on the planet. You can't leave behind any of what you've built, anything material, but you can leave one piece of advice or one piece of wisdom to your loved ones, to your family, to the people you care about. What would you leave them behind?
Never give up on your dreams. There you go.
Love it.
That's it.
I really love asking this question, because a lot of people can say that, but the thing I love about you is that you're an example of it.
No, that's too flattering.
I'd say you're pretty much going after it.
Exactly. You've got to go for it, haven't you? I think you've just got to go for it. Life is very short. All of the cliche things. I'm a very cliche person, because it is also true. So yeah, absolutely. If you've got a dream, just go for it. This planet, this life, this world is very, very precious, isn't it? So do whatever you can to do whatever you want to do, what's in your heart, and do it. And
where do you think that came from for you? Because a lot of people can hear that, and a lot of people can want to go after dreams, and this is what I mean when I say I really think you're doing it right. Where was that difference between having that dream and actually going out and implementing it and going after it?
It takes and will take time, effort, perseverance. My three favorite P's in estate agency: proactive, positive, patience is what I use a lot with clients. And it does take planning. So that visualization of, which I still forever work on. I'm still not nailed it, and I may never nail it. And that's good, because I'm always trying to think and create and progress, I think. So I've been told. But to actually go, right, here's where I want to be, here's what I want to have achieved, and stripping it back, over a 1, 2, 3, 5, 10. Here's what I've done when I'm, on my last day on earth. What does that look like for me? One of my idols of estate agency, Ryan Serhant, he carries around in his wallet the picture of the 80-year-old him, and he goes, that's who he's working for, to not look back on his life with regret. So that's what he does. That's his little thing. I like that. Love that, in fact. But yeah, you're working for your 80, 90-year-old, whatever, if health is great and all the rest of it. That's who you're working for your whole life. And yeah, the one thing that drives me is that regret of not doing the best I could for the people and in my power to do that. But yeah, it does take planning and time. So as I say, I was in Tesco a year ago, helping out, working out. Now that was for several reasons, Eb. That was because, one, I wanted to go and do that. Two, financially, that enabled me to take less from the business in a time where we didn't know what was going to happen in 3, 6, 9 months. So I think that sacrificing and sort of having that total open-mindedness to go, here's where, and having that ability to change on it and not feeling like it's there for you. And I love Tesco, by the way. It's great. I had a fantastic time there. So, and you're just remembering your roots and your grounds and where you are and what you want to do, but actually putting together a street. If you really, really want to achieve something, here's the word of what I'm trying to get to, is desire. You can do anything you want to do as long as you really want to do it. There's no, I really, really believe that. No matter who you are, what you've come from, what your background is, I think if you've got that desire, you have to hold on to that desire. You may do a million different things before you may get there, but as long as you've still got that there, that's then worth something living for and fighting for. And that's what I still fight for every single day. Full stop.
Something that really, really stands out is that you've got this big vision, but you've also got the roadmap to get there. And usually, it can be easy to have one or the two. You can have all of the structure, which is great, but if it lacks the vision, it's kind of hard to ever reach that height, and vice versa. If you've got the amazing vision, but you haven't really got the practical roadmap to get there, it's going to remain a vision for a lot of the time. And the other thing that really stood out for me of what you just said is actually the humility aspect of it, of actually being able to say, yes, okay, here's where I am, but I'm never too big for my boots, Yeah. And I think I really feel that is what holds a lot of people back. I know that I went through that when I started out. I started my first business. Well, technically, I started my first business when I was about 8, selling sweets at school. Yeah. But we'll say when it was 18, and that really came up. It was, I perceive my identity as this person, therefore I'm almost a step above. And it took me years of undoing, of just getting smacked in the face by life to realize that attitude just does not serve anybody. And also it doesn't feel good. And now I'm the first person to, when something, shit hits the fan, or something's up, or, someone needs some help, I'll be the first person to get there. And it's that humility element. And I really feel like it's that ego that can hold a lot of people back. Egos in a estate agency is also a really nice common topic, but I really feel from yourself, there is genuine humility there. And is that something that has that been just your personality, or has that been honed over time?
That's a deep question, isn't it? I'd like to. It's me. It's who I am. There's no two ways about it. I think that's just something I'm. Every opportunity, just to be sat here today having this conversation with you, I'm grateful for it. I think it's incredible. That you've reached out to me from London and said, Dan, we've been following you on social media. Wow, that blows my mind. I just do what I do the best I possibly can for me, my team, and the people every day, and that's my focus. Things happen around it, super duper. Love all of that. That's great. But I'm just very focused on absolutely doing that. And it's me. I'm just totally grateful for any opportunity that I've ever had or will ever have that comes across my radar and across my desk, literally. Yes, I will work 24/7 to get there and try and make it happen. But as I say, I'm just humbly grateful that I've ever had this opportunity to even do some sort of thing of what I want to do. That hasn't come easy, and as I say, there's a lot of planning and motion that comes in that, and that's due every day. And I think that's something. So I know, particularly in a estate agency, I can have a fantastic call, and then the next call could be a terrible call. Somebody's pulling out, or we're losing an instruction, or whatever it may be. And so I try to remain on a level amongst that. So although I am a very positive mental attitude person, and I really believe in all that, I also know that there is a line which I learned over the years of, right, okay, you're up here, Dan, great, but you're going to be down there in a second again, literally in a second. Yeah. So let's just keep doing what we do as solidly as possible, and then we'll see, you know, hopefully that will get us some places, and I'll be able to do what I love every single day, full stop.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that the way you did, because I was literally just having a chat, and I'm going to send this to him, to my new sales director. He's doing really well at the moment, lots of new clients, really, really excited. You know, energy is really high. And I said, this is amazing, you know, enjoy this time, but also never let yourself get too high or too low. You know, try and maintain that, you know, a bit of balance. Of course, enjoy the highs, celebrate them, feel them, you know, that's part of the whole journey. But likewise, you know, always try and maintain that balance. And I really like the way you explained that, because I was literally having this conversation last night.
You're only as good as your last sale is my classic one, Ebs. Or you're only as good as your last day, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if I went out tomorrow and messed everything up, that's what people would remember, wouldn't it?
Yep.
So
yeah, you see it in sports all the time, right? Particularly fighters, it's their last fight that everybody remembers. And this really nicely bookends, I think, the podcast, because I asked you at the start, you know, you had that example of people being excited to work for you, and I was curious to know where that came from, because actually that's, you know, really uncovers a lot about you and the business to actually attract that. And to me, the answer to that is your energy, you know, your humility and gratitude, because that is what's magnetic. It's those qualities of why people want to be around you. It's why I was drawn to you, right? It's because of that energy. You know, I had the best compliment given to me the other day by an amazing estate agent, business owner, Matt Giggs.
Really?
You know Matt. And first thing he said to me when he reached out to me was, "Eve, I love your energy," and that meant so much to me. And usually when people give me compliments, sometimes I can find it a little bit hard to take. With that, I really felt good about it, and I can say that to you. I love your energy, and that is what's magnetic to you, you know, and that's why you know, you have the success you do, and that's why people want to work with you and be around you. It's that energy. So
I think the thing I'd take it back to you just very briefly is your passion for what you do. I'd say that desire of what you want to do, and you're passionate about it. That shows with you. It obviously shows with me again. As I say, it sounds very corny, but like when I'm with clients, we're talking about, I actually sweat because I'm so passionate about something. I'm like, this is what we need to do. And your face there is like you're the same in your will, and I get that, and that's why I'm here talking to you. It's great, love it.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that and for your time today. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. It's been a real pleasure, mate. I really appreciate your time. I'm glad we've done this. Thank
you very, very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and I hope there's something in there that you get, and people might listen in and watch it and pick up on themselves as well.
Absolutely, there are a lot of very good segments in there as well that I'm looking forward to getting out. So yeah, Thank you again, mate. I'll catch you soon.
You're welcome.